everybody, it's Mr. McGregor here. Today's presentation is on Archimedes. I'll give you a brief biography of the ancient Greek mathematician Archimedes and a rundown of his discovery of the number pi. Archimedes was a great Greek mathematician, judged to be the second greatest applied mathematician of all time. While Archimedes was Greek, he lived in Syracuse, which is in southern Italy on the island of Sicily. He was born in 287 BC and died in 212 BC. Archimedes was a polyglot, which means he was an all-round genius. He was a mathematician, he was a scientist, he was an astronomer, an inventor and engineer. He made many great discoveries in mathematics and made many great discoveries in engineering and in physics. One of his greatest discoveries is that of Archimedes' principle. And this is an anecdote that many of you might know, and I'll try and explain it briefly to you. The story is about Archimedes' bath. What the problem was King Hero II of Syracuse had given an amount of gold to a goldsmith in Syracuse, and the goldsmith had made a beautiful crown, but the king felt that the goldsmith had cheated him and used some of the gold only to make the crown and made the rest with silver, keeping the more valuable gold for himself. He couldn't destroy the crown to prove that it was made of both silver and gold, so he asked Archimedes to solve the problem for him. Archimedes did so. When he got into a bath one afternoon, he realized that when he sat down in the bath, the water rose, and this was when he got his idea to solve the problem. So excited was he to solve the problem, he jumped out of his bath and ran to tell the king, shouting, "Eureka! Eureka!" not realizing that he was running down the street naked. What Archimedes did was he took the crown and an amount of gold. He put them both into a bath and realized that they both moved up the level of the water the same amount. But when he weighed the crown and weighed the amount of gold, he found that the crown was lighter. The goldsmith had substituted some of the gold for silver. This meant the goldsmith had cheated the king and Archimedes had solved the problem. Archimedes' other great discovery is that of the ratio of pi, which describes the ratio between the lengths of the outside of a circle, known as the circumference, and the diameter of a circle, the distance straight across. Now here's the way I think Pythagoras might have discovered his ratio pi. Archimedes was fond of drawing in the sand in the courtyard outside his house, and I can imagine him drawing circles. Now say he drew a circle like this, and then drew a line across the middle like this, a line through the centre. He might have measured the line across the centre and found that it was a distance from one side to the other of 2. He then might have used a bit of string and measured around the outside of his circle, finding that around the outside was a length of a little bit more than 6, say 6.3, and then dividing 6.3 by 2, he would have found that it was 3.15 all the way across. So for every 1 unit across the middle, it was 3.15 around the outside. He then might have done a similar thing with a bigger circle and said, okay, here's another circle with a line, another bigger circle with 3 across the middle. He might have measured using a piece of string around the outside of the circle and found that all the way around the outside of a circle was about 9.4. And when he divided 9.4 by 3, he found that it was about 3.14. He thought, I wonder if this is the same if I draw an even bigger circle. This time Archimedes drew an even bigger circle with 7 units across the middle and around the outside, all the way around, he found that it was 22. And when he divided 22 by 7, he found that it was about 3.14. He said, this seems to indicate something. For every 1 unit across the middle of the circle, it is a little bit more than 3 on the way round, about 3.14. So what he decided was that for any ratio, or for any circle, the ratio for however many units you had across there was about 3 units all the way around, and he checked one more time with another bigger circle. This time he drew a circle with a length of 10 all the way across the middle, a diameter of 10, and measured all the way around the outside of the circle, and found that the length around the outside was about 31.4. When he said 31.4 divided by 10, he got 3.14. This, he decided, was worth noting down, because for every 1 unit across the middle of a circle, there was about 3.14 lengths around the outside. He decided that he'd call this ratio pi, and named it after the Greek letter pi. This enabled him to work out the circumference, or the length around the outside of any circle, just measuring right across the centre. The story of Archimedes has a bit of a sad ending. The Romans eventually started to besiege Syracuse, and King Hero II again called on his old friend Archimedes to help him defend the city. Archimedes developed many wonderful siege weapons to help keep out the Romans from Syracuse. There are stories of him making reflectors that focused the rays of the sun and burned the Roman ships in the harbour of Syracuse, stopping them from invading the city. But eventually the Romans managed to take Syracuse, and the Roman leader asked for Archimedes to be brought to him so that he might use Archimedes' knowledge. He sent 2 soldiers to get Archimedes. When they arrived, they found Archimedes in the courtyard of his house, again drawing in the sand with a stick. The Roman soldiers were very rough, and they treated him with a bit of disrespect and scuffed up a drawing. So Archimedes said, "Nolle turbare circulos meos," which roughly translated means, "Do not disturb my circles." The Roman soldier was absolutely furious, and he drew his sword and cut off Archimedes' head. Archimedes was buried in Syracuse, and on his headstone was his favourite proof of a mathematical theorem, drawing a cylinder with a sphere inside it. Now, the location of his grave has been lost to us. We don't know exactly where it is, but it's known to be roughly around the outside of Syracuse somewhere, and there are people who believe occasionally from time to time they can find Archimedes' grave. And it's really sad that one of the greatest mathematicians of all time ended his life as the result of a temper tantrum by a Roman soldier.